I grew up on the Kenai. My parents are Timothy Shaginoff and Deborah Shaginoff. My grandpa was from Chickaloon, and my grandma is from Pyramid Lake in Nevada. My formal education is I first went to school at the University of Alaska Anchorage, where I studied psychology, and I got my degree there, my bachelor's there. And then I went and I worked for a couple years in social work, working with people. And then I decided to go back to school because I wanted to pursue my art career. And I went to the Institute of American Indian Arts in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where I got my BFA in painting and jewelry and metalwork. But really, my education has come from just kind of growing up and the things that my aunts have taught me and the knowledge that they've passed on down to me. As much as I would move towards painting and contemporary art, I found that sort of that hand memory and the sewing and the beading and the traditional skills always informed that work, and really gave me another layer to my art. I had to put my identity in there, and I had to put my heritage in there because it was the only thing that felt the most authentic and the most truthful. So it's always been probably the biggest inspiration for doing work, which is why coming to museums like the Anchorage Museum and visiting the collections and researching is so important, because it just brings me back to that bank of information that I'm always drawing from. My work is heavily based on research, because I didn't grow up in Chickaloon. I grew up in Kenai. So I have almost like this different knowledge, this Dena'ina knowledge, that's different than Ahtna, But I was able to kind of take that and then inform it with my formal education. And then going back to Chickaloon, I'm just able to confirm and add and bring more of that knowledge to the surface. This learning, because we're growing up, in a non-traditional way. We're growing up away from our indigenous lands. We're learning in different spaces and colleges and, other cities, other communities. It makes it difficult sometimes to have a complete knowledge of something because you're not living in it, and for me, going back to Chickaloon was just helping inform some of those little bits of, fragmented knowledge. And so being able to go back there and learn about these things, it's really just about asking questions and not being afraid to ask questions, because I think a lot of times we almost have a fear of saying that we don't understand something or don't know, or that it's a shameful thing, and we shouldn't be ashamed for not knowing. It's not our fault. And it's not something that is always within our control. But what is within our control is the work, and to get out there and to ask questions, to get out there and to look at the land, to get out there and to take long walks and to try to find things and to experiment and to take those risks, because they aren't always successful, but they do tell you something and they're always informing you. Being able to bring the silverberries into this work, into the museum, and to teach people about them is really amazing. I mean, I'm still myself learning about them because it's only been not even the last 6 months, that I've found them, and I'm not saying I've discovered them, because I didn't, because they've been used for hundreds and hundreds of years, thousands of years, but they've been dormant. Once I found them and once I was holding them in my hand, I started to ask elders who had actually asked before, but it was crazy because once they were holding them and looking at them, they remembered. And they remembered about these things. And that was something that Jeanie had told me. She told me that silverberries were actually kind of a medicine fruit, that they were, you'd use the seeds for your beads, but then you'd use the fruit part and everything that you pulled off of them as medicine. They have this salicylic acid that's in aspirin. So for me to go from a museum collections to the woods, to the river to find them, and being able to bring them here and actually experiment with them and try to figure out how it is they were used by looking at, these tunics in the collections is really important. The care taken with those pieces in the collection, it almost gets me all choked up thinking about it, thinking about them being here and the story of how it is that they came here, too, because right now they're able to share with us so many things. Traditionally these objects be given back and forth between clans, as gifts, as these acts of love and respect, and being able to be here and learning from them is really amazing, because that's where we are in the world today, is that we're not all of us are in the village and being able to learn from these things. Not all of us are living in a traditional way, so finding different ways, and the museum just provides another avenue for that, and I think that's really wonderful. So this last year has really kind of been sort of my study into moosehide and moosehide tanning and traditional practices around hunting. I understand sort of the sentient nature that that the Athabascan people have with the world around us and with the animals, and I understand that spiritual aspect, but I never really understood it or felt it, and it's because it's been broken. We stopped doing these things with moosehide, and as I started to ask around as to why that was, my elders told me, well, we had to hide it. And it just seemed so foreign to me, because I was like, well, what do you mean hide it? And they would tell me, well, we'd bury the hide, or we'd put it in the river, or we find a way to dispose of it, that was, covert in a way. And then I started to realize that that's a colonized practice for Athabascan people. Talking to Jeanie Maxim, my elder from Galcana, she told me, she's like, how you honor, these animals that come to you is you're supposed to use their body. You're supposed to use every part of it, and you're supposed to, give back to them by respecting everything that they gave you, and I realized that we stopped using moose hide because people were worried about being arrested. They're worried about hunting moose outside of the season, whatever that was. It's just this imposed upon timeline, for people who, it was important to do these practices. It was important to hunt the moose, because if that was your role in the community, to feed everyone, if that was your role to get the moose so everybody could eat, so everybody could be clothed and everyone could be warm, when that's taken away from you, it really took away a lot from our men, and particularly the men in my family. Within 2 generations, the script is so flipped, it's so different now, and it makes me think about all those things and makes me realize a lot of it answers a lot of the questions I had before as to why it is our family and our community don't do these things, and it's really sad to know that it came from this place of fear and this place of, just trying to survive. It broke down so many important aspects of people's roles and their identity. It took so much away from our men and really robbed the women of these skills, that they've been using for thousands of years. I use my art to figure out things, to figure out these kind of complex issues, within my history and my family's history. They allow me to explore things like moosehide. Like, why is it? Ask the question, why is it? Should I learn this? Why is it? Do we not know these things? Why is it that nobody talks about them? you know, and through that research and collections, through that research with elders, through that research of just practice and just working on moosehide, like it informs you in a different way. It informs you through that act. Colonization for me at its core is a separation from knowledge. It's barriers. It's walls that are put up that provide a sort of disjointed, fragmented information. You know, they're walls that make things confusing and make it so you can't really understand why people are the way they are. Decolonization is breaking down those walls and providing an understanding between knowledges. My art is my act of decolonization, you know, because it's a way for me to understand things and to gain access to knowledge that has either been withheld or taken away, you know, taken away from my family and my ancestors, and left me without.